women and men to ensure that they have access to the same things that I receive as well. And I need to recognize my position as a man in society. The doors are open just because of my gender, to ensure that I break down the doors for women who might not get those same opportunities. I do want to make it clear that UEL is very dedicated to ensuring that we are an institution that is leading on not only promoting women, but also ensuring that they are supported as students, but also as academics. And lastly, I know Gavar is probably watching this to make sure I get it all in. We also are committed to ensuring that our students particularly get the jobs necessary, the graduate roles necessary in order to provide for themselves and to be able to have a career that they are excited about, that they're interested in, that's something that UEL is able to contribute to. So we are always dedicated to ensuring that, especially with the disparities that are happening between gender pay gaps, and women in boardrooms, and all the kinds of other things that we are starting to recognize and see, not only in the UK, but also in the US. And I leave you with this, which is, I am 30, a Black male, and just trying to do good by the students and the academics that we serve. And I think that is something that we should all embrace, is that we need to start doing good to our community and start doing good for the people that we need to serve. That is the next generation behind us. And I think these stories help us set ourselves up to ensure that we are supporting the generation behind it, that there are things in this world that are not always good and rosy, but we can change the way that we act and respond to these situations that are going on in our country, in other countries, but also in the globe. So I commend and applaud these women for telling their stories, because we need more people telling their stories about things that are going on to bring awareness to the action that has been called upon us, millennial generation, generation behind me, that is just more about them getting a job, more than just, excuse me, more than just getting a job, they can get a paycheck, is ensuring that other people also have access and successful lives in their own countries, in their own relationships, in their own careers, in their own settings. And so we should give a round of applause for them for telling their story constantly again, and coming to UEL. We're so happy to have you this evening. I'd like to introduce you to your speaker, Jiro. That's it, right? Yes, yeah, the perfect. It's all out. I can introduce you to Jiro, who will be your speaker today. She is a TV compere. Is that right? TV compere. But she's also the TV host of Ladies. Yes, Ladies Lounge on Sky 193. So if you haven't tuned in yet, please tune in, right? It needs more views, means better ratings. And so I want to introduce you to her. She is someone who will introduce our speakers to you. And again, sit back, relax. Thank you for coming to UEL. Thank you for choosing UEL. And we're glad to be a part of this. Jiro?
Welcome once again, and good evening to everyone. And I hope everybody's got something to eat and something to drink, right? Great. My name is Ejiro. I am, like you said, I am an events compare, a TV host for Ladies Lounge, and also a public speaker. Now, the TV show is another great platform to support women, not only women, but everyone. But it's a great platform to support women. So we talk about topical issues in that program. There's a family, politics, religion, education, all the works. So it's really an honor for me to be here with this awesome ladies. I'm going to call you out, and everybody's going to see you, but just put your hands together for the reason why we're here. It's great to have all of you here. It's great to be part of this. It's great to know that you are bold enough to come out and see this story. That is something that is worth celebrating. So a lot of us here, I know each and every one of us here have a story. We all have stories to tell. But it's one thing for you to be able to step forward and speak your truth. And that is what you have done. And I know that a lot of us here are going to take away not just one thing, two things, but several things to help us know that we can speak our truth. And we should be bold enough to do that because I think out of it births the healing process, that's the courage, and that's the ability for us to be able to just take on our world and do so many things we want to do and everything we want to do. Because sometimes a lot of things hold us back and we're not sure, but there's that liberty that comes when you speak the truth. And that's it. So that's the reason why we're here. So without much ado, I want to say thank you all so much for making our time to come here, spend your evening with us. But I want to say a big thank you for being part of this journey. Now, these ladies are here and they're from around the world. I had an awesome time with all of you last night. And honestly, my perception has changed because now I'm just going to live in Dubai. You never know. Yes, exactly. So now, how come about that? That is because I sat with them and I learned and I've heard several things. I realized that I am not just meant to be stationary somewhere. I can affect the world from anywhere, but I'm also free to be global. I'm also free to travel the world and speak. Now, you ladies have gone to how many countries already? So many, and the journey continues not over yet. So, I mean, that's awesome. So, I know that I think that boldness came from where you're coming from and you being able to see the story, right? So, welcome you all once again, and I will be introducing our speakers to be with us here. We have a number of them, but we're going to have three of them first, and then we'll take on the other ladies, okay? I will start with Erica T. Johnson. Erica, have a seat. And I want to welcome Wendy Alexander. Then I want to welcome Dr. Princess Fumihanda. Thank you. I don't think I'm too far from you. But okay. I will, no, I'll send you a link here. I'm just gonna say something about you, just about her feet. Now, Erica T. Johnson, of course, she's one of the vision speakers for this tour. She's the founder of High Pursuit at an Influencers Leadership Institute in an international award-winning visibility and profit strategist, leadership expert, international speaker, and engineering leader who is passionate about helping high-achieving women elevate their visibility and profit in the workplace and in business. And she teaches women, visibility and how to influence, positioning them for greater leadership opportunities through signature trainings, programs, right? And retreats. We talked about the retreat. And she's featured in Success Magazine, several magazines in the US, and World Report, and World Business Review, and the Network Journal, to just name a few. She's the recipient of the Women Economic Forum India Exceptional Woman of Excellence 2018 Award. And you're going to tell us a story about being part of this, okay? And then Wendy Alexander. Wendy's the reason why I'm going to be going to Dubai. And I already have where I'm going. I'm just excited about Dubai. All of a sudden, I didn't speak last night. I'm like, Dubai. Now, Wendy is the founder of Inspiring Decisions and Global Success Society, and a cross-cultural consultant of international business strategists. She provides training, business, and solutions and guidance to help entrepreneurs and organizations to run their businesses, right? And she has gone global as well, having businesses and leaderships from Ghana, Thailand, China, and the Middle East. See the reason why I say they're global women, right? And she has 20 years of international business development, education, and mental health services to transform the business. Now, the reason why I'm taking time to go through this so we can understand the women who are sitting right in front of us here. I didn't want to do this, but I think it's, you just get to know more about them so that, you know, you can talk to them when you're done and then you're like, oh, she's person of mental health advocate. Okay, I can talk to her about that. Okay, when this part of the first coaches console. Please put your hands together for Wendy. Now, welcome Princess Leadoff. She's the one who is the, you know, who put all of this together. She's the one who brought everything, this whole vision together. And she's an African princess living in diaspora and a psychiatric mental health doctor of nurse practice. Right, she's the 12 times best-selling author, publisher, online TV host as well, like me, award-winning filmmaker, and founder of Ask the Web, Ask the website here. And CDPN, CHDPNP. You're going to tell me what that means. And the creator of the Fearless Visionaries project. She brings wealth and health to her audience by tackling decisions around mental health illness and depression, anxiety, suicide, ideation, poor self-image, and disorders. She helps her clients use storytelling on their roads to recovery. She's the first African to speak on TEDx International platform in Saudi Arabia and the first recipient of the NAFCA African Oscar in Hollywood, California. Thank you so much for yes. Absolutely. Now, like I said, there's a reason why I had to say all of that, just to enable you to know the kind of women who are in this trip together, who are on this journey together, and how they can help affect you, and how you can go to them and you can talk to them more. Now, I'm just going to be asking us some questions. I'm not talking to my demo. Now, when I first learned about this, I thought, wow. And the first question that came to my head was, how did she get all these people together? That was the first thing that came up. I just thought, how did you know them? Did you handpick them? How did this all come to be?
Well, some of them I already knew. Now, others I had to pray seriously about. And so for me, it was more of really following that inside of me, that strength that says, and also as a filmmaker, there are certain stories that I can see in my mind's eye. And their stories, even though a lot of people did apply to become fearless visionaries, but their stories stood out. Their stories were stories that I felt like people could actually really relate to. And I saw them as stories in films, if that makes sense. So just seeing them like stories in films and me loving films helped me to say, you know what, this over this and this over this. And the thing is, the women are also strong. They're people that are ready and willing and ready to do whatever. If I say sit, just sit down, they sit down, you know, because they know that it's coming from a loving heart and it's not coming from somebody who's been spite. So it's just been a delight to be working with all of my sisters, because they are all my sisters. We see the power of one and the power of us. So they're my sisters.
So now this is from America, Saudi Arabia, Ghana. They're from everywhere.
Yes. I know you're looking like this, like what in the world, how did they do it? Well, they did it. That's the thing. They're ready to tell their stories. Many of them have been silent forever. They've been silent for so long. And now it's just the time and the season. And so when it's the time and the season, you're willing to do whatever it takes. Right? You're willing to do, and it doesn't really matter if you're from Saudi or, you know, and we have a platform, a very secret platform, which we call VIP, where if we have to cry, we cry, right? If nobody looking at us, we'll cry, and then we wipe our tears and keep it moving. So we have that place where we can release ourselves, and I think that's what helps us the most. Because if we just had, well, just go out there and do it, without that place, that safe place, I don't think we would have been able to be as successful as we are now. But that safe place helps us to be like, it's a place where we correct each other, it's a place where we love on each other, it's a place where we yell at each other, it's a place where we say, look at, stop it, whatever it is that's going on with you, just knock it off and stop it. So it's a place, a safe place, and I think that's what women and men as a whole, even men, need that safe space that they can come and know that they're not judged. They can just come and tell it like it is, and we can love them, and when we yell at them, they know it's coming from a place of love and not, hate.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to ask a question from that before I move to the next question. Now, you said something about when it's time, it's time. So did you realize that at what point did you know it was time?
Well, this Fearless Visionary Teddy Veil, the first thing that I did was a documentary last year. So I directed my very first documentary last year, which was called Fearless Visionary, and it was a bunch of other women. And out of that, it became an African Oscar winner, an Indie Festival winner. And so I knew I had something there when it started getting attention. And so it was a question of now sitting back and saying, who are the women that can really back the story, back the whole project up? And these were the women that showed up, Now, let me say this. There were few that I really felt that they were supposed to be a part of it, but they had their own little agenda and they went. And now they're looking, I'm like, wow, we never knew it was gonna go this way. So what I'll say to you is whatever it is that you have been called to do, sit in it a little bit, think about it about not just about you, the impact that you're going to make in the world. And this is what the ladies are doing. Their stories are not just stories. We call it a book of missions. That's what we really do, because it's a book of missions. Everyone has a mission. And so we're here to tell you about our journey in that book of missions. What is our mission? And you're going to hear from our ladies today what the missions are. And I can bet you that there's somebody here that would listen to one mission and say, wow, that's me. So I'm looking forward to hearing something.
Thank you so very much. I hear persistence here. That's what I hear. Keep an eye, right? I hear persistence. Now, there are a lot of movements. I'm going to direct this question to you. There are a lot of movements which we know about. There's Me Too, there's Bring Back Our Girls, movements like that. What is different? Why is this movement of Fearless Visionaries? What's going to be that different? Why is it different from the other movements that has been, going around the media, going around the world, and there's been a lot of, publicity, and there's been a lot of support on those groups. Why is Fearless Visionaries going to be different or similar to those?
So just like Dr. Francis Hancock said, the book of missions is more about us sharing our story and coming from a place of having experiences. Just like you said, there's always a lot of movements going on. But what we have developed in our group was it was a safe space for us. What I've been able to research from previous groups is that it wasn't formed like ours. The bond that we have is something that I have never ever seen. And for myself, sharing my story, I did snippets because I like to do a lot of live streaming. But once I became a Fearless Visionary, I shared. It was my first time sharing. And I shared on Facebook. Okay? And the reason why I did that is because I had my sisters with me. Because I had other women who had actually gone through something. And so for me, I felt this sense of security. I'm an only child. So now I have all these sisters and then also experienced this. And even when we're not together, because as you said, I live in Dubai and I'm from the US. And so I had to share my story when I was supposed to be in Dubai. And I can still vision them being there. And it's not just this book of missions, it's not just the book. Like we are a true family and sisterhood. Like they travel here, so we can support each other and be together. We fly together, we worry about each other's families. And so it's so much more than just a book. There's nothing compared to what those vision is.
Thank you so much. Is there something you talked about the sisterhood. Is that something you're willing to let out, like share? Do you want to give the secret recipe out? I don't know. You know what I mean? Do you want to share it because that's something that's keeping you? So is it something you want to share so that other people can say, okay, we like it, I want to be part of it, or is it something you just want to do? Is it your own thing?
Honestly, I'll be honest with you, it's not really something that you can even just, I wouldn't say it's a recipe.
Okay.
It has to be more about where you come from, who
Right.
you feel secure with and around. Honestly, I was one of the ones who they'll tell you when she asked Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock asked me to write the chapter, I was like, oh yeah, I'm so excited to write this chapter because she'd been asking me to write this book. And so I was like, wow, okay. But what people don't realize is that once my sister started writing a chapter, and we had to go live in our private group, is that I saw them crying and they were sharing their stories, and I was like, oh, this is really deep. I must have read the whole thing. Like,
What are ready for that?
Why are they sharing? So I had already written my chapter. But my chapter was love, right? To be honest. And so I went to Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock and I said, I have something I need to share with you. I said, I need to write more. And so at that moment, because they had shared, right? And that created our sisterhood and our bond. I was able to share because I didn't see the word fearless. All I saw was visionary. The entire time, I only saw the word visionary because I am a visionary. But I didn't realize that the whole time that what I've been going through in my entire life is that I was fearless. Who could get on a plane, honestly, and travel to Dubai and not have a contract, and the person's name was Beer that was going to pick you up from the airport, and you jump on the plane, okay? And so that's what I did. And so even with my story that I shared also about 16, 17, I tried to commit suicide 6 times. My 6th time almost took me out. I had a narcissist ex-boyfriend from 16 to 17, and he was very abusive, physically and mentally. From that, he held a gun to my head more than once, and I was able to come out of it, but I didn't share that until I got into the group. There was no way. Honestly, if Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock wouldn't have created Fearless Visionaries, I don't know how much share my story today.
So that's true, Stephen Bill.
It's been with me since I was 16, 17. And I have 2 children older than that now. Okay? I'm just saying like that. So it's been a long time. So I feel liberated to be able to share that.
We talked about some things yesterday. I wouldn't go into that right now. And both of you may be like, oh, she did that. Yes, she did that. I want to, she's laughing. I want to move over to Erica. Erica, I want you to just say a little bit about your story. Are you able to do that?
Yes. Talk a little bit about my story. For me, I actually grew up in a very small town, which was like less than 5,000 people in the U.S. I grew up in Louisiana, if anyone knows where that is. And I found myself being plagued with an attack to silence me. And that attack, the weapon that was used was sexual assault. So for me, at the age of 9, when most girls are worried about, playing with your friends outside, playing makeup, dolls, I was actually being molested by someone that I knew. And that particular instance, I did tell my mom, and I know it stopped, but there was never any further conversations that happened after that. I came from a family where I grew up in a home where we didn't talk much. We were as girls told to be seen and not to be heard. And so we didn't really talk about conflict. We didn't talk about issues. We just swept everything under the rug or under the carpet. And so that cycle just continued in my life. And so when I was around the age of 12 or 14 in middle school, I was attacked again by my cousin's boyfriend. And again, I told my mom and it stopped, but again, there was no further conversation. And then I found myself at the age of 18 when I went for my first well-woman's appointment, so at the gynecologist, that I was fondled by the doctor. And the nurse was actually present.
And I can remember that particular day, because I had went and I acquired contraceptive because I was going away to college, and my mom, of course, wanted to make sure that I was protected. And I remember I was just so out of it that particular day. When I got home, I literally threw everything in the trash. I was just trying to get to my safe haven, which at the time was my room. I never told my mom about it. I never discussed it with anyone. And then I went off to college. And it was my second year in college as a sophomore at a university. I was studying to be a mechanical engineer. I actually called up one of my cousins to take me to the mall. It was time for me to refresh my wardrobe, get some new things. And she already had plans. She said, I can't take you on Saturday, but I can take you Sunday. I'm going to this concert. Would you like to go? And for me, I was like, okay, I didn't necessarily want to alter her plans, but I was grateful for the invitation. And it was a free concert, and I got the VIP treatment. And for a little country girl that grew up with less than 5,000 people, I was very excited. I thought I had won the lottery, struck gold, having that opportunity of going to this concert, being backstage, the singer, watching him perform. But after the concert, I never knew by me meeting the singer and his friends, and just so happened my cousin's friend was dating the singer, that a crime would be committed that night. Once we got back and we were actually playing games, and there was drinking that was involved, but I ended up being drugged and passing out. So I blacked out, and so I was in and out of consciousness, and I can remember the first time waking up, and I saw where it was like 6 silhouettes that were just lined up against the window, and it was of the men, and they were actually there stroking their genitalia, waiting just for their turn. And I was gang raped that particular night in the hotel room after a concert. And I didn't report it. I didn't go to the authorities and let anybody know what actually had happened. But I struggled with that. I struggled carrying the burden of knowing that my voice had been taken. So that's my story.
When I listen to the stories, when I read through it, I hope everybody's prepared for what's going to happen here tonight, but it's great. The reason why I wanted Wendy to share, I wanted Erica to share a story was because I know that a lot of people who are out there want to really hear this. There's one thing reading about it, and there is another thing, like, and it's another thing when you really listen to it, when somebody sits down and tells you about it, it's probably different. So, Wendy said something that she didn't see the fear, she only saw the visionaries. Because I think they get to a point where you go through a little stuff and you're like, oh, okay, when do I move out of this? So at what point did you get to that part where you're like, I need to move out of this?
I don't really think it was that I got to that point. So I wrote the chapter this past February. I actually I was wearing a mask the entire time. My history is that I actually worked in mental health and substance abuse, working with teenage girls for years. And so I was able to find therapy, right, healing them by helping and supporting them. But I never shared my story. And so people couldn't understand why I was always getting in trouble with my managers and advocating. They said, you only go to the house one time. I was a case manager, but I was there every day. You can't go buy anything, and I was buying them things. I was doing everything I was supposed to do because I was feeding my pain, right? I was trying to help someone else. And so, when I was able to write the book chapter within Fearless Visionaries, like I said, I felt liberated. But I have a little twist to it also. When I was going to the Middle East, I was going to build my business. At least that's what I thought. And so what happened was, I thought I was going to build my business in the Middle East. I couldn't figure out, why does God keep placing me in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Dubai, Abu Dhabi? Why does he keep doing this? But little did I know is that I found peace and healing in the Middle East. That's where I healed. I shared my story in the Middle East now. I actually wore hijab, and I also wore the abaya, and where most people would say, you're Christian. How can you find peace behind the veil? I did. I wore it proudly. I felt free. It was a moment where I felt like I wasn't being judged. The one here, what I was wearing, I was able to somewhat hide behind it. And so even when I was in Saudi Arabia, you have to wear the abaya. It's changing now. But I decided to wear the hijab. I wanted to wear the veil. My husband would say to me, you have to wear that every time you go out. I never shared with my husband. I've been married for 23 years now. My husband just finally found out the entire truth of my story. We've been married for 23 years. But the reason for that is because I was worried. I didn't know what he would think, whether or not he was going to leave me. That's just something I was worried about. And of course, it was the opposite. I would never leave that. If anything, it made our marriage stronger. But honestly, I don't think it wasn't a time before I wrote this chapter. Like I said, I don't know if I would share it, but I'm thankful, I'm so grateful that I did this for me.
Thank you. Okay, guys, this is not a recorded. We cannot cut and start again. This is real life. So we cannot say, okay, cut, dry your tears, put the makeup back on. So we're just gonna take it the way it is. It's real, it's uncompensated. When I learned I was gonna do this, I was like, oh my God, it's gonna be hard. I told Professor, this is gonna be hard for me, but I knew I had to do it. You know why? Because I can resonate with doing it. I can resonate with all of you. I resonate with that. And I know that a lot of us here resonate. Okay, so everybody get your tissues open. I know. Oh my God. Princess, the doctor princess. We're trying to kind of define the title. What should we call it? Should we call it princess? Should we call it doctor? Why not just all of it? Just call Dr. Princess.
Wait, I'm about to join them in crying.
I know. Dr. Princess. We have a lot of students. We have several students here. This is a college. This is a university. So we know that we have a lot of young ladies, young men, people who are going through a lot of stuff. And I was going to ask, college life being very, very challenging, is diverse because, like I said, young men, young women, now we know the culture, so much is going on the internet, the social media, there's a lot going on. But how do you want to relate this story to the students? What do you want them to take from this experience, from this real life, stories of what has happened to you ladies and what we have the other ladies here, they're gonna come and say something. It's amazing because one of our speakers here, Hassan, was actually, Hassan was actually accused wrongly, and he was I saw him yesterday and I'm like, he's so gorgeous. So there are different situations. We all went through different situations. It might not be exactly your story, might not be exactly Wendy's story or Fumi's story or Eric's story. It might be your own story. But how do you want the students, how do you want them to relate with this, and what are they going to take from this?
Here's the thing. When we look at Fearless Visionary, people say, what is Fearless Visionary? We regard it as a lifestyle. It's not just a movement, it's a lifestyle that we live on a daily basis. And in the lifestyle, you have a man and you have a woman. So with us, we're not a movement of, power to the women. That's not what we're about. because we also have few men that are actually supporting us. And like you said, you mentioned a case of Florida, who is the complete opposite, is the son.
Yeah.
So that here she is fighting, losing a whole lot just to keep the son, and it's just, I think a few months ago now that things are just settling, and I don't think the guy, I'm not even sure, by God's grace, he's gonna come over it. But I still think that he's still going to be experiencing the ripple effect. So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to strike up a conversation between the men and the women and say, look, we've got to come together and find a solution to this, right? It's not just about us sharing our stories, but it's also about us saying, what kind of conversations can we strike so that we can understand our men better and our men can understand our women better, because frankly, statistics also show that the men that perpetrate this have also been abused. And because they were abused and they never, right, many of them come from silent cultures like myself. And so there's nothing for them to actually, a place that they can go and say, I was sexual, because if they dare to mention it, then that kind of, people look at them like, you call yourself a man. I mean, how could that have happened? So we want this to be a situation where we're coming out and saying, hey, our voices have been quiet for so long. We're sharing our stories, but guess what? We still love our men anyhow. And at the same time, we want our men who have actually been abused before to come out and let's find solutions to this, because this must stop. If we do not stop it, we pass it on. What's been going on is people have been passing it on from generation to generation into generation. Some of us right now, we're suffering from things that our forefathers did in the secret, and we don't even know, but we just know something's wrong, and we cannot put our finger to it, but we just know that something is wrong. But when we start to strike up the conversation, we can also go back into our own history and find out, because in my own history, and we're talking about African royalty, there was a whole lot of it. Right? It was say nothing. So you go back, and then you're able to come forward too now and say, wow, you come forward with that history, and now making sure that your children understand it so they do not pass it on to you. So we're saying, let's stop the cycle. Bottom line, let's stop the cycle with men, with women. Let's come together, power of us, and stop the cycle.
Thank you so much. Erica, your story, I'm asking you this question because I want you to explore enlightenment. What measures can educational institutes put in place? What measures can they put in place to combat sexual assault and sexual molestation? Because you were in university, you were in uni when it happened. I've got children, they're going to go to uni soon, sometime. And of course, they cannot go to university and shut themselves up. Maybe they might go out, they want to have like the innocent, they want to be concerned. And unfortunately, that tragedy happened, that unfortunate incident that happened. So what can we do? We are here sitting talking about this. There's a lot of like workshops and things. Sexual abuse is we all know about it, but it cannot be romanticized in it. So what can the educational institutes, for the fact that we're writing UEL, what can they do to help, what can put in place to help to make sure that such things don't happen?
I was actually reading some studies and statistics for here in the UK when it comes to college students and dealing with sexual abuse, and there was something around like 2 out of 5 students are dealing with sexual assault on campus colleges, on college campuses, university campuses. For me, it happened, I was going to one school and I went to the concert at another school. And these schools weren't far from each other, but I can remember the things that I would have loved. Having experienced that was knowing that there was a place that I could go on campus and actually talk to someone. I don't recall, if this happened to me back in 1998, I don't recall there necessarily being like mental health counselors on campus, you know, making themselves available to really hear from students that were struggling with such a situation as sexual assault. I believe for colleges and for universities, there's a mandate to make sure that kids and the students that matriculate on your campuses are actually safe, that there's a level of safety there. So making sure that students are aware that, hey, if something of this nature actually happens, this is a place that you can go to. This is a number, you know, that you can call and you can report what has actually taken place. And just being aware, the studies show when it comes to sexual assault, happening on college campuses, that it's happening at parties, it's happening in open places where there's actually people around, it's happening where there may be alcohol involved and your judgment may be a bit impaired, such as mine was. So it's, you know, for the universities to make sure, you know, there's never enough awareness when it comes to situations like this. Even in Wendy's case, when it comes to suicide ideation, as well as students dealing with depression, there's never enough awareness. You know, we have to make students understand and be aware that there are resources, that are things put in place, that there's actually too a judicial system that's put in place. You know, when something of this caliber actually happens and things are reported, what actually happens to, you know, the aggressors, to the perpetrators that have afflicted, you know, whether it was a male student or a female student, by violating them. And so awareness, just continue to build the awareness, make counselors available for students, and make it where students feel okay, you know, because you have to have that trust a lot of times in order to really share and really be open. And that's why Fearless Visionary has created this community of trust. That's why, you know, women and men come into the community and they share what's going on with them, because we built that trust with them. We're telling them, we're talking to them from a level of, I've been there, this is what I felt, this is probably what you're feeling. And so making sure that, you know, those individuals are individuals who know how to build trust relationships so that those conversations can actually happen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. Yes, please. I would love to. At this point, I hope. Do we have? Are we closing our questions? Please. We would love to have questions for our panel. No, we're going to come to that. We're going to have a session for that. But I just want us to know that we need to get questions down so we can ask. Okay. Wendy was going to say something about it.
I wanted to piggyback off of that as well. For me, I was, like I said, 16, 17. I graduated when I was 17. So that means I was entering college. And so my ex-boyfriend that I was dating, I was actually trying to get away from him. He didn't find out what college I was going to until the day before. I didn't even know I was going to that college. I chose to go to this college to escape, which was about 4 hours away from my home. And so once I arrived at the university, you asked that question, I came in with depression, right? So I was depressed. I was running from a situation. I had been getting therapy silently, and I was silently healing is what I call it, because people did not know that I was going to therapy and things like that. But I'm 4 hours away from home. So that means my therapist is where? At my home, right? In my state. My support system is left behind, right? And so once I got to college, just like Eric said, I'm not my age either, but there wasn't, where we went to orientation, they said, well, here's mental health services. If you ever feel like you need somebody, this is who you can call. It was more like sign up for this credit card, then, here's this party going on. And so even entering into college, I was depressed because I was escaping from him. And what you'll read in my chapter is where he still drove 4 hours to the university to sit outside at night. And he would actually go maybe an hour and back to see what I was doing. So basically he was still stalking me even though I was trying to escape from him. I didn't have anybody to turn to on the college campus. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to trust. And again, like I said, I'm an only child, so then that made it even more, right? Stressful for me. And so for me, I feel like that college campuses, honestly, I do believe in therapy. I 110% do, because I wouldn't have made it as far as I did. But I think it's also when you talk to people who have gone through something that you've gone through. Because, when a therapist looks at you and says, listen, I understand how you feel, but do you really understand? Do you really know what I've gone through? And do you have a story to share, right? Because if you don't, then you don't understand my pain. So how can you really help me? But I can be able to talk to someone who's gone through that, right? And so for me, I just wish when I was running, when I ran to that university, the thing about it is I didn't even know, I'd never seen the university. I just ran, had no idea what I wanted to major in. I was trying to escape. And so when I landed at that university, it was just, I was there. And he stopped me after that. I had to leave that university and run again, which you'll read in the book as other things continue to happen in my life from that. But, like Dr. Princess Hancock said, if you don't get help and it continues to be a cycle, I have a daughter and I have a son. And I had to stop the cycle, and so I had to share with them the things that were happening. But I think it also comes with, remember, when we leave our homes from our mothers and our fathers and we go to the universities, this becomes our family. And they leave us on a college campus saying, you know, they're going to take care of our child, right? And so we have to also put those things in place. I have two children, like I said, she's graduating from college. I probably was the most protective mother there is to make sure that things were on campus, to make sure that I wasn't going to repeat, that she wasn't going to repeat the cycle. So it's very important to have mental health services, but it's also important to have people who have had experience and gone through things to be connected with those therapists. Thank you.
That is hey everyone, hope you're on your questions. I'm going to, at this point right now, I would love to introduce to you Florida Santana and Fearless. Please come up here, sweetheart. Please put your hands together for her. I would have loved her to sit. You want to sit on my seat because I wanted to share your story. The reason I'm taking it from here is because of your son. You'll have a seat, take my seat, it's all right. And just share your story a bit with everyone.
My story, I talk about the lie of the hookup culture. And what drives that hookup culture is our need to connect with each other. We all want to connect on some level. We want to belong, we want to touch, we want to communicate. And oftentimes that's leveraged, especially among young people just starting out of college, all right? And I find that we're ill-equipped as young folks. And I'm not saying that you guys are not smart and that you're not ready to learn, but we're leaving home where there's this safety net. And now we're going into a whole new environment with different cultures, different mindsets, and a lot of influences. And that's what happened to my son. So I share my son's story, who on his first year of college went away to college, and his involvement with a young lady led her to kind of include him in a web of lies that she ended up accusing him of rape. And in the college environment, the college decision is to protect the alleged victim. So what happens is that whoever is the quote unquote victimizer must be removed from the community. And oftentimes arrested, ostracized, and what have you. So the journey was a difficult journey. And so in the chapter, though I share that, what I found the crux of the issue was this hookup culture that oftentimes kids participate in. And there's an underbelly and underneath it, because there's the legal system, there's public opinion, and your ability as young folks to cope. So it was tough. And thank God we're on the other side of it. But a lot of it has to do with our need to connect. And so in the story, I share kind of the doors that we leave open as humans. You know, you just want to connect. And not understanding relationships, so the relationship between a man and a woman, and what drives those things. And that's, pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Martha. Clarita, I'm missing one as well. Okay. I want to introduce Jay. Jay, you're going to come say something. Please put your hands together for Jay from our Frederick. I'm putting them out one after them because I really want you to listen to what they have to say so that you can also get your questions together. And before we go into the question and answer session, all right? I'm going to just share the story.
Hi everybody, thanks for being here. So my chapter is called The Knock-on Effect. And I think for me, it definitely is about exploring and connecting the dots to some of the challenges and experiences which I faced growing up, which included the experience of female genital cutting at the age of 15. If anybody's heard about it, it's also referenced as FGM as well, especially in the UK, or FGMC. And also connecting the dots with having been sexually abused when I was a child for about the best part of, I think, about 11 years, from the age of 3 to 13, 14. And it just tries to connect the dots as to why certain things have happened and the knock-on effect of those experiences that brought me here. So basically, having depression, having eating disorders, also suicide attempts where I was actually on hospital watch or doctor watch, my GP watch, where, because I wouldn't take medication for my depression, they had me on watch. So basically I had to check in literally every week, and she would phone me on a daily basis to make sure that I was still alive and kicking, basically. And also the knock-on effect of being disconnected from my family, because you want someone to blame, but not knowing who to blame, and you also almost feel like a bit like a thorn in the side as well, because you're carrying this real burden that you're trying to protect them from. You're trying to protect your parents or your mum, your brothers, your relatives from the pain that you're going through, because you don't want to seem like you've put on the burden onto them. So, but then by the end of the chapter, I feel that I come to a place of, a place of rage. And the place of rage is that why in the year of 2019, for example, that we are in now, although I wrote my chapter in 2018, that there's still a high prevalence of sexual violence against women and girls, and men as well. And why aren't we raging enough to demand it to stop? Why aren't we tackling it properly? The Me Too movement and Time's Up movement are great, but they do not tackle the knock-on effect that happens. And people are still living in shame, they're still burdened with stigma. And until we really start tackling those issues, we're not gonna, the voice of those who've experienced sexual violence or being violated in any shape, size or form. And when I say violence, it's the whole gamut. I'm not excluding assault as well, because they're equally invasive as well. Okay, it's unfortunate we have to use all these different terms. At the end of the day, people have been touched without consent. That's the bottom line. And it's just like, until we stop giving more strength to perpetrators, those who've experienced it will not come out. And those who've experienced it won't be the ones that helped us to end the cycle of shame and stigma. So even as participants, because we're all participants in the human race, we all have an obligation, I feel personally, to rage against this. We should all be asking our colleges, universities, every institution that deals with humans, including our GP services, NHS, everybody, what are they, even our employers, what are they doing to safeguard all of us in the workplace so that if we have been through this kind of experience or we feel threatened in the workplace, who and where do we go to? If you think about in your head right now, in your mind, whose door do you knock on if you feel unsafe in the workplace? Who? So I think now at this point, I've never felt sorry for myself, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. These are my life experiences, and I feel at this point now, I've gone through them because for some reason, somebody, the universe, God feels I'm strong enough to be the person to get people to start raging. We have to start raging. Don't feel sorry for survivors because a lot of us are doing great things in the world. You just don't know what we've been through.
Thank you so much, Jay. Your guest knows in the podium. Dr. Angel. Angel. That's the microphone. Just share your views as well.
Okay. I am a wife, a mother of 4 amazing children, and the grandmother of 6. And I'm an instructor, researcher, and a social entrepreneur. And as a social entrepreneur, at the core of everything I do is service. And if you live long enough, you'll know that service requires a lot of us. And whether you are a girl born of sugar and spice and everything nice, or a guy with sticks and snails and puppy dog tails, you'll get to a place in life where life just happens. And in that happening, you endure a lot, right? Well, I endured a lot of beautiful colors in my life, but I also endured a lot of shady colors throughout my life. In that process, I dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder, and my name is Dr. Eve, and I considered suicide. On the other side of suicide and evaluation and understanding that I needed help, I was able to get that help and support the people I love, the people in my community, and most of all, my family. I am a fearless visionary leader. And I realized that regardless of what my colors look like, that my rainbow was enough. And my colors shine on the other side as an instructor, as a researcher, as a mother. Your story, nothing in your life shall ever be wasted. My goal with this story, or our goal, is the mission of Fearless Visionary Leaders, is a message of hope. That it's okay to get help. It's okay. Let's break the stigma and help each other.
Is everyone ready for any questions? Yes. Do we have a question? If you have any questions, just hold on to them. We're going to have a question and answer session. But before then, we're going to have the thriller. I need to get out. Oh, there you are. We're like, woo, okay. What's gonna happen to our thriller? Right on time. Am I talking to anyone? No? Yeah, so come sit here. Because I want to see it. Are you sure?
Oh,
Don't enjoy. Relax and enjoy. Is everyone able to see?
Today, I want to share with you some stories that are personal, stories that are empowering, stories that are inspiring, stories of women that have triumphed over extraordinary circumstances. And it is my hope that just as one event has literally changed their lives, these events and these stories will change your life.
Thank you all so very much, and thank you for your patience. I think I should thank you for your patience. Thank you so much. So we're going right into the question and answer session. Feel free if you have questions. I'll pass the microphone to you. You mind me on my phone? Oh, come on. It's your so, questions and question time now. Right. Not sure if I should run around with a book.
My question is sorry, Dr. Princess. I just say call you anything. Right. My question to you is, at what point did you make that decision that you wanted to make a difference to this community and to share the stories and to transform the world? At what point did you actually come to that decision?
Well, I think when you get to a point where you keep hearing stories over and over and over and over, and everywhere you go, people are constantly telling you, I have a story, I have a story, I have a story. And so for me, that was sign for me that it was time to do something about it. Not just hear it, but do something about it. And with me, I have a background of that to where I tried to actually literally climb off the bridge in New York City and just end it all there. Oh, by the grace of God that I was set free from that. And so for me, just hearing stories over and over and over. And once I did the very first documentary and it began to win awards and people were listening to that, that was another sign that, wow, there are other women out there. Perhaps it's time for me. If nobody's doing it, you know, one thing I always believe is, if you want to do something, if you want something, and nobody's doing it the way that you desire it, get up and do it yourself. And so what I was seeing was people talking, telling stories, doing this and that, but there was no solution. There was nobody talking about, hey, okay, we went through this. I love what JK did. He said, well, look, don't feel sorry because we're way beyond that now, because now we're taking our pain, we're rolling it all in one passion, and we're giving, you know, we're giving it a jab in the chin, if you can call it that. So for us, this is what we do. This is, you have to know it in your gut, right? Once you know it, if you feel it in your gut, there will be evidence around you. Now, it's just like for somebody who all of a sudden, have you ever noticed when you suddenly want a Mercedes Benz, and all of a sudden, everywhere you go, you see a Mercedes Benz, and you never saw Mercedes Benz, you know, you saw it maybe once a while. But because you have chosen and said, you know what? I want a Mercedes Benz. Suddenly, every day, you look around and there's Benz all over the place. That's how I felt with these stories. Every day, I start hearing all over people who say, I have a story. And that was good for me.
Did I answer your question? Okay.
I would like to congratulate you all for your efforts, and obviously you're more confident than anybody else. Your courage and the ability to come out with these real stories. These are not made up stories. They're not movies, they are real stories. Because we're in England, we always like to use this same way as the lady asked the question. Questions for Wendy. At what point, Wendy, you taken the decision to open up to the world and make yourself exposed? Especially that I know for a fact that you have a business, you've got clients, you've got companies, corporate world. You do not get scared of the consequences. And are you prepared for the next step after the launch of obviously this international?
That's actually a great question, really good question. Honestly, I was nervous and scared at first. I always I say hashtag do it scared. But it's not about me. I had to realize it's not about me, it's about saving someone else's life. So when I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw where a teenager or someone had took their life, I was like, it's not about me. I can't worry about that being embarrassed, ashamed, people judging me. They don't judge you regardless. People are gonna have something to say regardless if you do right, do wrong, someone has something to say. But at the end of the day, I'm able to sleep at night knowing that I shared my story to save someone. And as you know, I live and I work in police, and suicide is considered haram, which is bad, okay, it's like a sin. And so once I decided to come out and people asked me about it, especially in the Middle East, I was worried because it is haram. I have built my business in the Middle East, and I do have clients, but come to find out, they were very open to it, to the point that we have now started small groups in the Middle East, talking about suicide, talking about depression, talking about children being abused, which is also something that you don't hear a whole lot about in the Middle East. And so from that, I said that I was placed in this position. My entire life has been my journey to share my story, that God has positioned me to do this and prepared me for where I am today. And so wherever I am in the world, even if it is in the Middle East and it's considered haram, people still want to commit suicide, regardless of where you are. And I have to be, that vessel to be able to share my story and my truth. And again, it's just not about me anymore. And I really don't, honestly, to be very transparent, care, whether what people say, at the end of the day, especially when I think about the young lady who sent me that message on Facebook Messenger and said, you saved my life. For the students that are actually in some of the schools in Dubai that I'm working in now who have wanted to commit suicide, who are not going to be talking to me, from them cutting their wrists. And so just because it's in the Middle East doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so I just have to continue to share my story and my truth regardless. So that's a great question. I feel like my clients were my clients. And if anything, it should honestly bring people closer to me because I'm being very transparent. And a lot of times as leaders, we have masks. I wore masks. I have businesses. Not only that, I was a CEO of organizations, but the entire time I was wearing this mask as a leader, and a lot of us do that. And so if anything, I'm going to be able to be that spokesperson for those women who are wearing that mask, and hopefully that they'll come out and share their stories.
Hi, I'm Amy. I work here at the moment. I'm actually moving over to the NHS, so a lot of the things you said I'll be able to hopefully take with me. You are all brave, bold, brilliant, beautiful women, and very it's wonderful to hear your story. But I suppose I'm a dignity work advisor, and I wonder what you might say to me. I have a story, of course, but if I was to meet somebody who did, you might say, well, actually, what's the point? What's happened has happened, it's in my past, as you said, when it's not maybe about me anymore. How would you say, well, come join us, tell your story, this is how you can benefit somebody else. You've alluded to that already, when I wondered if you could tell us a bit more, how would you get someone to come on board who's feeling maybe so very angry about what's happened to them, or being able to change their own past, what would drive them?
It, honestly, it's just happened. It's like a magnet lately, to be honest with you. People have just been coming to me, as well as the Fearless Visionaries, and they just want to share. And like I said, being authentic, and being that vulnerable person, being able to share it. And the thing about it is, for me, is that you have to realize that I only shared a chapter with you and share my entire life. I have so much more to share with you. It's just a chapter, right? And so when I stress that to people, it opens them up a little bit more. Like, wow, what else could you have gone through? You were basically, honestly, I was in a hospital, the tubes down my throat with the charcoal, and pumping my stomach, taking all the pills, to a gun held in my head. They're saying, how, if that's what you went through, like that was traumatic. People would say that. I was like, oh, I have so much more. I have so much more to share with you. And so for me, it's just, I just remain open and honest and transparent and vulnerable. And I love people. I love people. I do. And so when people come to me, I am not a international business strategist. I'm not an international speaker. I'm just written. And I'm a mom. I'm a wife. And so however you come to me, whatever religion you come to me, I'm able to open up to. It's funny you say that because actually in the school that I'm in, I was telling my sisters, I was like, ever since I shared the story, because the school I'm currently working in, I help them with their American accreditation and also their inspection. And so they asked me to also help them with their inclusion department to start with special needs. Ever since I shared my story in February, I told Dr. Prince, I was like, the parents are coming in telling me like something about abuse and things that are going on in their home, and I'm like, how do you even know? Like, you don't know my story because I haven't shared anything with you, so how do you know? And so I just continue to remain open and knowing that your story heals. I always say that I will no longer stand in my trauma. And I inspire other women and teenagers to do the same. Like I said, I have a daughter, I have a son. And one thing I definitely want to leave here with is to say, make sure you talk to your teenagers, your children. Because my mother, she was there for me, my family was. But again, I was the only child, I was very closed, I was very reserved, I was very independent. And now we have technology. And so my mother would say, are you okay? Remember, it was like a face-to-face, maybe a conversation that you have on the phone. I said, yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm always fine. Those people were always fine. You were not fine. And then think about it. So now when you send that text message to your child, how are you doing today, right? Your child's in school, in high school, they say, I'm fine, I'm doing good today. Now you even have a bigger mask because it's technology. And so we have to go back to sitting down with our children and saying, how are you doing today? Are you doing okay? It's okay not to be okay. And I felt when I was sitting up here, I was like, I felt like there was, a lot of moms and dads in the room. And I think this is an important conversation to have. Please don't let technology be the cause of you missing the communication with your children. That's something that can be important. Because had I honestly, I don't know if I would have shared with my mother what I was honestly going through because I didn't want to. I didn't want to take her through any more pain, so I was trying to handle it on my own. And so when I had teenagers that come up to me, now I am sharing it with them more. I didn't share it before. And so now it's just, I don't have to share everything, right? I can share just enough with them. And so that's what I've been doing, and it's just like, man, it's honest, but it's just so liberating sharing the story, knowing that you're helping someone, like it's amazing. And the tears that we cry, we shed tears because we're proud of each other.
I just add to that, for someone who, because I know when I started my career, I started as a social worker in the US. And so as a social worker, one of the things when you would go into a home to help a teenager and say, well, what do you know? You don't know anything about, this, what do you know? So you can't talk to me about depression because what do you know? And so in situations like that, when you have things like that, all they need is just you being quiet and listen. They don't necessarily want you to say anything about it. They don't want you solutions for it. They just want you to listen. They want to know that somebody, they've been screaming, their insides have been screaming, and nobody has been hearing. And so when you say, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. And there are times that will do a whole lot, de-escalate the issue, and then quickly refer the person to the right, you don't have to be the one to do the whole counseling or whatever, but quickly refer the person once you just de-escalate it. But mostly it's just be quiet and just say, I hear you, I see you, I'm here.
Thank you so much.
Hello, ladies. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate you guys for your bravery and your boldness and for just speaking out. You're speaking out on taboo subjects that women hide behind. And my question is to Erica. You mentioned before that when you experienced molestation when you were younger, you spoke to your mum about it, and she was quiet. How was it when you went in university with the gang rape? Did you speak to your mum about that, and how did she perceive it, and how she read the book?
When I was 9 and I shared with my mom what had happened, actually, and you'll probably read about this in the book, but there was a lot that went on in my head to the point where that particular day, the last time it happened, I was in the room and I was struggling with myself to say, okay, now's the time. Like you gotta go and tell, you gotta share something, because I was honestly afraid to share, thinking that if I told my mom something like, this person is touching me while I sleep, that she wouldn't let me go outside and play. I mean, I was a 9-year-old, so that was something as simple as that. I was like, she won't let me go outside and play. But I knew that something was wrong with it. Like I knew whenever I felt him in my room, that something wasn't right. So I can recall that last time I really just pumped myself up. I just kept talking to myself till I got up and I went in the room. And mind you, it would happen when it would be a house full of people. It'll be a house full of people. And this particular time, it was a house full of people. Everybody was up. I was sleeping. I was tired. I wanted a nap. And I remember walking into the living area where everyone was. And I said, I got to do something that was just totally opposite to what my character and my typical behavior was. And so what I did was I reached back as far as I could go back. And I balled my fist up. And I walked up to him and I just hit him. And it went silent in the room. And my mom was the first one to say, like, hey, why did you do that? And then I began to share with her what actually had happened. Now, I don't know what she told him or what she told his father, but after that, the little guy didn't come in and spend any weekends with us. And then shortly after, because my mom was dating his father, they split. So that's what actually happened when I was 9. Now, when I was gang raped, I didn't share it for a while. And I want to say, and really a while was probably like 2 years. I actually had to go, I was in college and I was also studying theology as well. And it was time for graduation. I had finished my programming and it was time for graduation. And it was something that my family was there, and I remember sharing it at that particular graduation ceremony, that I had went through this particular thing. But it was still never a topic of discussion afterwards with my mom. It was always, avoidance. Like when it came to conflict, it's not something she really dealt with very well. But I can tell you concerning the Fearless Visionary Project, she was the only person that I shared that I was going to be writing this chapter and that I was going to be sharing my journey and the cycle of sexual abuse that had plagued my life. And I was going to be sharing about the gang rape. And I began to really ask her questions like, who else in the family had actually gone through it? And it was a very awkward conversation, but I can tell you she encouraged me to share and to write, to write my chapter in the book and to share as well. And I had all of my books delivered here. So she'll get her book when I get back to the States.
Thank you so much. You have a question? I think, how many of you have a question? Just take like 2 more questions. You have a question? Who else has a question? Oh, does any other person have a question? Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry about that. I'm international student. English not my third language. So I do my last year from university. And to be honest, I didn't want to come to speak today. Because I did this dissertation. I'm very, very stressed. I took dissertation and I talk of the loneliness and other people because I care 1 year. 1 year. I watched the weekend not come. But I heard the story and no compare that because I'm very, very shocked. I never see some people face this about sexuality. I have this from African background, sexuality is secret. Even your mother, yeah, never ever I talked with my mom or family about sexuality. We friend is normal, yeah, in school, but in family at home, it's difficult. So the question to you, Eric, after your experiences, how you everyday life in your family with children at home?
Do you understand the question?
So after I experienced it, how did my everyday life
Yeah, when you
change?
children are yes, change how with your family because you say that you couldn't talk with your mom about it. Sorry. How you face with your children? How you tell them you share your story with your children?
Do you understand that question?
So you want to know, once I experienced it, how did my everyday life begin to change and how I dealt with my family?
And your children?
With my family and my children?
Yes.
Or with my children?
Well, yeah, because now your children kind of, you told your mom.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with all of that now, the relationship with your mom, knowing that everybody's aware, your everyday life, your children, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so can I just be honest? I carried around a 30-year secret. Okay, so y'all can kind of tally up what my age is. So for 30 years, I didn't really share what my truth was. And so just as Wendy talked about, I learned how to live with a mask. Even as a little girl, I learned how to live with a mask and just, keep that part of me, in a closet, told it to shh, be quiet, don't say anything, you stay there. But it was still living through my life and the decisions that I made and the actions how I dealt with individuals in relationships. So when I actually, opened up and shared that with my mom, I really felt for the first time that I had her support. Because there's been a lot of things, there's been a lot of things in my life that I've been able to achieve. And I think, that part of me having gone through that abuse really caused me to be resilient. It really caused me more than anything to go after, my dreams, to go after what looked different for me, what I wanted to be in the world. I wanted to get away from, where I grew up at, those sort of things. And so it caused me to be motivated. It caused me to be resilient, and which meant, through my school years, I was very active in sports. I was active in extracurricular things, leadership, and I never really had the support of my mom. She always, was working hard. She was a single mom, raising us. And so she wasn't there a whole lot to support me for things like that. But I feel now with me even sharing about this book and the fact that she gave me the assurance that it was okay to share, I really feel now that I really feel like she's supporting me. Now, the thing about me sharing it with my children, so I have 3. I have a 6-year-old, I have a 13-year-old, and I have a 15-year-old. And I was talking to my therapist. So, therapy is okay, guys. So I was talking to my therapist because I knew I was on this project, and a part of this project, we would be doing a world tour. And so that meant we will be going to different countries, and we'll be sharing, and we'll be meeting people just as yourself, that as we're sharing our stories, that will also probably come and say, that happened to me, can I just share my story with you? But I was encouraged to make sure that I shared that with my children, what actually happened to me. And so I can remember we went away for a staycation one weekend, and it was before the book was released. Actually, we pushed up the date of the book release, so that meant I had to do it a whole lot quicker because I was trying to talk myself out of, really telling my kids right then and there, trying to figure out how I would tell them. But I remember we went away on a staycation, so basically we went to a resort, just me and the children, and we spent the weekend there. I let them play in the pool, have fun, and I called them into the room and I said, hey, we need to have a discussion. And I can remember, I thought that my daughter was gonna be the one that really took it hard, right? But I began to have the conversation, and my son is the one who really broke down, and he began to cry. And I just kept talking. I let him just feel that emotion and go through that emotion because I knew I had to share it with him. Because number one, it's very public. We're doing a lot of what we're doing on social media. He may have had some friends that would see it and could potentially tease him to say, oh wow, your mom was raped. What kind of woman is she? Like all of my children can get some type of backlash from me being so public and sharing my story. And if you looked at my trailer, and I encourage all of you guys to go on the website, fearlessvisionary.com, and look at our trailers, but I was very graphic in my trailer with me sharing my story. And so I allowed him to go through those emotions that he was feeling. And afterwards, I talked to him and I said, are you okay? And he just said, Mom, I'm so sorry that there was no one there to protect you. A 15-year-old, which was so encouraging for me, after experiencing some other individuals that were very close to me really shaming me and blaming me for what had happened, I felt so incredibly proud as a mother that my 15-year-old would say to me, I'm so sorry that there was no one there to protect you. And he said, Mom, I'm so angry. I'm angry. I'm sorry that this happened to you. But then he began to talk to me about how strong I was and how a good mother I was. And so that's what my life looks like. I have children that actually support this journey, who was excited about Mommy going away to London to share her story and be with Aunt Wendy and all of the other sisters talking about what has actually happened in our lives. So I said all of that to say it's not worth holding on to a 30-year secret because you're trying to cover individuals who have no respect for you to begin with. It's okay for you to share your truth. Don't get stuck in the lie that there will be individuals who don't support you, who's gonna shame you, who's gonna make you feel bad. There's probably more individuals there who want to support you and make you feel that you are enough, that you're a part of something so much bigger than the abuse that has actually happened to you.
Voice on my soul. Thank you so much. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Do we have any more questions? Or comments? You want to drop something? This will be the last question. Yeah. Oh yeah, I thought you were wanting to ask some questions. Okay, I'll come to you. I'll like you to say something. Oh, that makes life easier. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Melody. I am. Thank you. I'm from the university. I have a couple of questions. That's again, anyone feel free to answer. So my first question is, how do we incorporate the conversation with men, like males and females? You know, how would you at the university in like a straightforward, practical way? What would your view be, and what would your suggestion be?
The group that we have on Facebook, right? We have a group which is predominantly women, but we also have men. And so what we tried to do about 2 weeks ago or so was we went into the community and found some powerhouse men who were, who had a platform of their own, and we brought the five of them together to begin to speak. And in 45 minutes, it was over 2,000 or 3,000 views there, because we allowed the men to moderate it. We allowed them to say exactly what it means, and for the first time, even us women were listening to the men, and frankly, I was weeping in the inside, just hearing, because there are times there's this communication, we're able to hear the heart of the men themselves that say, look, we too been through it. And then we also hear the part that was telling us the psyche of a person, of a man, or a woman that finds themselves abusing the other person. So I think because here's the thing, if people don't see, they don't believe anymore. So when you start on that journey, it's always good to find people that support it and let them be the one to say, I went through it. It's just like what we're doing here, the power of us. We always remind ourselves in our group, the power of us is not one person, the power of us. So when you begin to start that conversation, it's important that you find people that have actually been through it, that can say, this is how it looks like, and this is how it can be. And when you start that, I think you'll ignite something.
Great.
Yes.
All right, so what I wanted to say was, to add to that, it's just, for so long, the focus has always been on women and what women go through. And I think if the women will all scream of equality, we have to have conversations around this for men. So it also includes starting with imagery. We need to stop just using the image of women that are being abused. We need to stop making it a woman's issue. It's a global issue. It's a man and woman's. It's a human issue. And I think when we start breaking down the gender sort of like stereotypes that we've created over many years before many of us were born, then I think then we'll start to see that other men and boys will start to come forward, because now it's not about them and us. It's about us together fighting something.
Thank you. And just to also ask, as a starting point, collectively, as a university, how can people who've obviously not necessarily had those experiences, but how can we all work together to support the conversation and, and in terms of opening up a practical solution in the university?
Why? Practical conversation or communication, again, is to stop sort of like gender realizing. I don't think that's even a word. I've made it up. Okay, sorry about that. Stop generalizing. I can't even say the words. Like communications for a start, and just make it universal so it can happen to you. Remember those old war like posters there that we need you. And so that's what we just need to start doing. So it's not specific to him or her. It's specific to anybody and everybody. So I think it's just that simple starting point, and start maybe dropping articles online about men and women who experience sexual violence, and just make it even sort of thing. And don't overcomplicate it. It's already complicated enough. Now we need to decomplicate it so that everybody can get involved. And I'll keep saying that because I feel it's so simple, but we've just made it so complicated over time.
I'd also like to add to that, because my own experiences as a woman were very difficult. And I believe that, again, the conversation should be issue-based. But on the other hand, I also ask us to look at how we as women, she, her, and hers, we birthed the nation. But the things that happen to us happen to he, him, and his. They are our families. They are our boys. They are our husbands and our cousins and our, they're us. They're our family. And so what happens to her happens to him. And that is where the conversations need to be.
I think one of the things that we do that makes Fearless Visionary different is the fact that we're not a feminist group, right? We're not trying to be political. We're not religious either. We're just women who love our men. At the same time, we understand that, yes, a lot of the things that we have been through came through men, but it didn't come through all men, did it? All right, so in our group, we actually have men that are actually supporting us, and that's why we started that conversation by bringing the men, and we're getting ready to do another one because the response was just incredible within 45 minutes. I mean, right now, I think the views might be around 5,000, I don't even know. It's just the men coming into our group and saying, hey, we see you, but do you see us?
Thank you. Okay, yes, because I'm a little more calm. Yeah, I have a question. You have one more question? Are you sure? Come on. No, it's not. Yeah, she has a comment.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
My name is Aisha. I'm glad you spoke today. For me, it's inspiring, very motivating. So my question was very generic, but little things of what kept you motivated to keep on going. Because when you go through hard times in life, it's very easy to get motivated and kind of turn left and make things go the wrong direction. But what kept you, to anybody that wants to answer, keep going on your path?
Was that question inspired because Erica talked about how she was involved in sports in school?
Yeah.
Because it's very easy. Because I stood there and was thinking that's the time for her to be depressed, lock herself in her room, don't want to do anything, don't want to make friends. But she got into sports and everything. So Erica and any other person, can you please share the answer? Thank you very much.
That's a great question. I'll piggyback off of what Erica said. I actually played basketball too. So sports was my thing to go to. And then once in high school, honestly, the motivation came from just my grandmother. So yeah, it was my grandmother. So my grandmother is my rock. And so it was like, I can't disappoint my grandmother. I am the only child, but I'm also the oldest grandchild. Next to me, he's 12 years younger. So I was the only child for a long time. And so my grandmother was my motivation. She said, you make me proud, you make me proud. And so I was thinking to myself, wow, I can't tell my grandmother that I'm depressed. I can't tell my grandmother that I just attempted suicide like 5 minutes before she called me and told me she loved me. And so for me, she just kept me going. Now, when I got older, I have children. I have a 23-year-old and I have a 20-year-old. My children are my why, my motivation, and my husband. And so, and then when we wrote the chapter Fearless Visionaries, now it's just like my motivation is you to be able to come and speak to students and counselors and people in different professions, and just to continue. You all motivate me. This is motivation for me. Like, we have to do this. This is motivation, and so we appreciate you. I appreciate you being here, and then also just the will to live. To know that that I have so much to live. Where I've accomplished so much in my life, even though I went through so much as a African American woman to work in the Middle East for over 13 years now. Back then, it was not heard of. And so I have to look at where I've been, what I've gone through, and then where I am today, and living the, as we call it, the Fearless Visionaries lifestyle. That's my motivation.
For me, and I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, I just knew that there was so much trauma connected to where I had come from. There was so much trauma. I just knew I needed to do everything that I needed to do. I had to do everything I needed to do to just really get out of that. Initially, it was like that seed of potentiality was really watered in me because I began to watch television, and there was this show, and I don't know if you guys have probably ever heard of this show, but it was called A Different World. I've heard of that? I see a lot of smiles. But it was a spinoff of the Cosby Show. And although I lived in this small community, honestly, there weren't a lot of mentors. A lot of my friends, the only options they had was to drop out of high school, as well as to get pregnant as a teenager. And I just knew I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. And so I can recall watching every Thursday, religiously watching A Different World, because it finally gave me an opportunity to see individuals that looked like me. And they were aspiring to be great things, you know, a medical doctor. One of the guys was aspiring to be an engineer, and at the time, because he wasn't the cute guy on the show, I didn't want to be an engineer, but I later became an engineer. Another person wanted to, you know, to be a judge and to fight for social justice and the things that really she cared about the most. But that show really, because there wasn't a lot in my community of like motivation and really helping to, you know, give children options in a community like that, I turned to the television and I watched that show, A Different World. And it helped me to see, okay, Erica, there's something more to your life than what you see each and every day. And so that too was motivation for me. You know, just having that good programming, you know, helped me to see that there was opportunities outside of what I had lived in that was really calling me to say, okay, you can rise up a little bit higher than where you come from.
You want this closer to you here, so we're going to come up next.
And thank you very much to start with. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate it across genders, but it's also across ages. It can affect anybody at any time in their life, and I can encourage people to speak out. But I wanted to say, because I know we're streaming and we're going out to lots of students, that there is a fantastic wellbeing service at the University of East London. You can access it through Moving, which is our own site. You can access it through the student hub, and if you email your tutor, you email any member of staff, if you need support, you will get it. So I encourage people not to be alone.
We're going to do anything for she's not going to, can you just pass the microphone over and just get it to her? Yeah, she's got contribution. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I don't know how to phrase the question properly, and I was kind of fighting the question. I'm fighting the urge to actually ask it. So my question was around the point of healing. Anyone feel free to answer it, but what did healing look like for you? Like, when did you know that you have, well, I don't know if there's such thing as completely healing, but like, when did you know that you had healed from your past? Like, were you ever able to look the perpetrator in the eye and know that you did not feel anger towards them, or is it just a thing that you learn to live with, or I don't know if my question.
No, that's a great question. That's a loaded question, but that's a great question. Ooh, okay, so wow, all right. Healing for me, as shared before, is that my healing is definitely a twist because it started in the Middle East. When I went to the Middle East, because I had no distractions. My ex-boyfriend wasn't in the Middle East, I never had to see him. I was able to be free, be who I was, to be able to find clarity. I stress this to the women that I work with all the time, is that you have to step outside of your zip code into a different country code. I used to say that for business, but now I'm saying it for healing. I truly believe that sometimes you have to leave an environment that you're in to be able to heal.
and regardless of what that looks like. And for me, it was the Middle East. It was a Muslim country. I feel safe. I feel safe. They don't judge me. They support me. They're my brothers. They're my sisters. And the healing definitely took place in the Middle East. Now, do you truly, honestly, 100% heal? I'm still healing. And I think that when it comes to when you're definitely sharing your story, we relive our events. And the last time that I saw my ex-boyfriend from 16, 17, my daughter was 2 years old, and we were walking to, we were in a store, we were leaving the store, and I gave her to my mother. I went outside to get something out of the car. I hadn't seen him, I was probably like 25 at the time. And so that was the first time I had seen him, and I stopped in my tracks, and I digressed at that moment to 16 and 17. I was terrified for my life, even though I was much older. I was married, and I had my daughter, and when I saw him, I just stood there, and I was speechless, and I went into protection mode that I had to protect myself. And he said, "How are you been doing? I've been looking for you. Hope you're doing well." And then I went into this reverse psychology, you know, saying I'm fine, and I was backing away at the same time looking at him. I'm thinking about the gun that he held to my head. I'm thinking about the times that he had a bat, that he was beating up people, like all of this started to come. And so at that moment, I knew that I still needed more therapy, that it wasn't over, you know, to be able to see him. And so from that, honestly, I'm still healing. My place of healing right now is the Middle East. And I encourage sometimes you just have to leave your environment, you know, and I'm hearing that, like I said, from a lot of women, don't be scared to step outside of your country. And just because I'm a Christian, right? But I feel safe and secure in the Middle East, and they have really helped me to heal and see things within myself. And the clarity is I can't even explain the clarity, honestly, that I've been able to receive wearing the hijab and the abaya and praying. I actually participate in Ramadan. I fast. I do everything they do. I do. And my healing has come from that. And so that is, I found peace behind the veil. And as we used to say, I found peace in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? That's the truth.
Did that answer your question? You have a question? Oh, please. Do you like it?
No.
You asked that question. I thought about that question. I didn't. I went to protection mode. I was trying to escape because my story is that I actually, when I went off to college, and I stated I was running college, so I thought I had gotten away. And when you read inside of my book, it said I went through a whole lot with him. Well, inside the chapter, I went through a whole lot with him. So when I saw him, I couldn't share it. To this day, he doesn't know. He probably knows now because I shared my story on Facebook and I've seen his cousins as well. And this is what I haven't shared is that my mother goes to the church with his mother today. And so he had asked me about me for years. And so I had to finally tell my mother most recently. You know, she said, his mother is really looking for you. She wants you to call. His mother misses you. And I just would avoid the conversation with my mother. And so most recently in February, as I told her, I said, let me just be honest with you about the person that he was. And, you know, his mother's asking to see me how you, the healing, it stops right then because I'm like, I have to be able to share that with my mother what happens. Because I don't want to see him. I don't want to talk to anybody. Yes, she's a nice woman, things like that, but I don't want any parts of that. So I've never shared, so I guess they'll find out now. You know, to be honest with you, that's a great question.
So, healing for everybody is different, right? One thing that I always tell people is your healing begins when you forgive, right?
Yes.
And forgiveness does not necessarily mean that the other person will receive it. So forgiveness is about you, it's not about the person.
Yeah.
Because in my own case, you know, I never got a chance to say anything to that person. That person's dead now. And I never got a chance to say anything to that person. But I forgave that person even before that person died. I forgave that person. And once I forgave that person, I said to myself, you don't have to receive it because you probably wouldn't even receive it anyway. Not that you deserve it, but I forgive so that I can just take that elephant on my chest and get rid of it. And then the other thing that I now decided to do was like, okay, who around me needs that help? Who needs that push? So I just dedicated my life to creating platforms for others and doing that. Now, the second perpetrator is saying, the family is all over London. We were saying yesterday, I said, oh Lord, God Almighty. They probably say the whole shebang now. You know, I'm probably saying, going back to the drawing board, I say, wait a minute, this is what, oh, where that happened? You know, so, but the thing now, it's my truth. And nobody can deny, you can say anything about my truth. Because I was the only one on that bridge. I was the one that was thrown off the stairs. I was the one that lost his family's fortune over this man. I was the one that lost my home, my business. I was the one that became homeless. An African princess in America, homeless, sleeping on the floor for 3 solid years. Nobody can say that it didn't happen. And so I wasn't looking for anybody to tell me anything. I was just trying to relieve my own self by saying, you know what? You don't deserve the forgiveness. You don't want the forgiveness, but I forgive you anyhow. And so now when I see him, the second person, this is how I knew I've been healed. I saw him and I was like, oh, happy day. Happy day. And you know, and God has given me something even better. I have a beautiful husband. I have children that love me. My children now who are 4 and 2, they're now 30 and 29 in their own homes doing beautiful work. What else do I need? You know, and so I hear, oh, he's in his second divorce now. I just say, power to the people. You know, power to the people. You know, but thank you, God, for just getting rid. Back then, I didn't think it was God, right? I was like, whoa, how dare this happen to me? Me, how dare this happen? But now, I look at the brother and I'm like, wow, dang, what were you doing? You know, what was this all about? You know, so, you know, just know that healing starts with you, it begins with you, it ends with you, you are in the middle of it. It's all about your healing, not about them receiving anything, and just move from there.
Yeah, honestly, we're just going to be taking over some rounding up right now, and we're taking the last comment, last question, okay, and then it's a comment, okay, and then you have, okay, all right, thank you.
Well done to all you lovely ladies. Fearless Visionaries. We all are in our own respect. Getting back, not to reflect from anything anyone has said all evening, but getting back to the conversations that need to be had. Perhaps we're missing something, we women. I run a support group for victim survivors of domestic violence and sexual abuse. And I've met over 1,000 women today. And out of these stories, their mothers knew that they were being abused, and the mothers did nothing. The men who do this, and I'm not blaming the brothers, and say that we women were missing something. The men who believe in the playground, in the school, in the classes, who take it to the boardroom, to the vestry, to the halls of parliament, to all the halls of power. They are the products of women. So we really don't necessarily need governments and third sector organizations to put regulations and laws in place. in our home at the domestic front, we have the power to make change.
Yes.
Dr. Lee talked about living her life in color, her colors. Let us start having the right conversations so that future generations of children, not just girls, but children, can live their lives free from abuse, and their life would be lives of color. Yes? So we need to find out what it is we're missing there when we're parenting our children. And we could boycott the fashions that make our children look like little women. That could be a start. And getting back to God. Find some religion, some kind of spirit. You mentioned God, God saved you, God saved you. You need some kind of spiritual connection to get over the horror, the demonic, the dirtiness, the darkness of abuse. Yeah. Thank you.
So I definitely want to say something about your first comment when it comes to parenting. Like, we all women are, we're parenting boys, we're parenting girls. So one of the things that that I did that, just having this, being a part of this project, forcing me to have the conversation with my children is I began to talk to them about what healthy relationships look like. I began to talk to them about, what does sexual assault, what does that all encompass? It's not just, you being fondled or being raped or being touched inappropriately. It could be, the words that you use towards an individual. It could just be you, on the physical side, just brushing someone and they, they didn't want it. So it actually created, this space actually created opportunity for me to really begin to talk to my kids about things that I felt like, I hid from them because I thought, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe they are too young, or maybe, it'll come up somewhere. But really, it's so true. It's our responsibilities as mothers to make sure that our children are aware. They're not learning from the street. They're not learning from, hey, they do something improper and then, they're placed in jail, or there's some bad consequence that comes along with them being inappropriate with others, but they're learning at home. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Thank you so much.
Very quickly, I've had my time already, but just a follow-up question. You mentioned mothers, and that is something that I kept hearing, and I was quite angry about that. And mothers knowing what's happening to their child and not stepping up and doing that makes you feel, whatever it might have been. I guess you can avoid relationships that lead the perpetrators that you don't see anymore, but your mum, your current relationships, the impact of that, I mean, I could feel sadness, and surely there was a lot of anger. What has that done to those relationships with your mothers, especially your closest family members, and what advice would you give on that? Because that's also another huge part of that healing process.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had to understand is that my mom had a story, or she has a story too. And maybe she's not as courageous as I am. She's not as much of a rebel as I am to really begin to speak about what that story is. It was very much a challenge for me. It was a challenge for not only me, but for my sister, my older sister, and my older brother as well, to have a mom who was often disconnected from us. She wasn't, as connected as parents, the expectation of a parent, how you should be, right? So, in me just processing it as I got older is when I began to understand. My mom too had been through, I don't know if she'd been through sexual abuse. She was kind of hesitant with really sharing a whole lot around that, but she had been through domestic abuse. She and my father actually divorced and separated when I was actually a baby because he was extremely abusive. And like Wendy had experienced, he had pulled guns out on her as well. And so when she finally made the decision to leave and to bring my brother and sister and I back to Louisiana, she was running for her life as well. So I had to, later on, I began to understand that she also has a story that she may not have healed from. And it begins to manifest in different ways. And so it's a matter for me learning how to be patient and even expressing that to my mom. She goes through a lot of sickness in her body, and that's a result of trauma. That's a result of, things that you're bottling in and you're not sharing. And so I had that opportunity to share with my mom that it's probably time that you begin to talk to somebody about your story. And so I end up almost flipping around and being a parent to her to say, it's okay, like we all go through things. Nobody's gonna judge you for what you went through. Like we need you to heal so that you can be a better person as well.
So for me, let me add the extra twist to this. As I told you, my mother did not know. My mother didn't know any of this. My mother found out when I was attempting suicide on my 6th time because I was in the hospital, but she didn't know about the other times. And most recently, when I shared my stories, when she found out a whole lot about her daughter that she didn't know. Now, my twist is that it was rocky for my mother and I in our relationship, to be honest. It's just being transparent. And what happens is, sometimes when we share our own story, if other people can be scared that you're going to share theirs. Okay? And so for me, me sharing my story, my chapter, should I say, I shouldn't say my whole story. It's my story, but it's not the whole story. And so it's for me sharing my story, my chapter, it made our relationship a little rocky. And it still is to this day just a little bit, most recently. And it's because sometimes, like I said, when we sharing our own truth, sometimes you have to share other people's truth too. And so right now we're in between of I'm proud of you for doing it and sharing. How much more are you gonna share? And I said I cannot promise you, right? Because now I feel relieved. I love my mother dearly. I do, but at the end of the day, I gotta be able to share, to continue to be able to heal. And so for me, it's just a little bit different because she just found out the whole truth of everything and all of this and other things that she knows I've gone through. So you put that on top of it as a mother. So I can feel that as a mother, I get that, right? But at the same time, I have to be able to move on with my life. Hope that answers your question.
We have one of us that she's in Canada and she would have been here. Her name is Unyielding, and with her, a situation happened in Nigeria as a teenager, was assaulted by the uncle who impregnated her, and then went ahead and took her because the uncle was a medical doctor, took her out to pull out the baby out of her. And so with her, even as of last week, she's been receiving threats from the family that, she's been disowned, they don't want her to share that story. But the thing is, they're not looking at the impact that has had on her. She's an attorney, she's doing well on the outside, but on the inside, she's not really doing well, right? And so with her, just like they said, everybody has a different approach of what's going on with her. But with her family is completely non-existent. They've said, you decided to share that. They went as far as saying, well, you deserve it. After all, you were a flirty girl, you were young. I mean, that's a teenager. Well, how flirty can you be an uncle who is a medical doctor still on you and assault you? You deserve everything that came to you. You can die, things like so. There are things that will happen, but the thing is, in between all that, she's found sisters that she never had. She's found sisters in Fearless Visionaries that are uplifting her, guarding her, and letting her know that it's okay to tell her truth so that she can heal, so that for the first time in her life, she can actually enjoy the family and the children that God has given her, because that is also affecting her relationship with her husband.
Okay, all right.
I just want to know, how can what you do as a website DMP support people globally? Oh, thank you. She was going to ask
Well, website DMP is a sister affiliate to Fearless Visionaries. Because I'm also a site mentor and doctor of nurse practice, what we've done is also created another group so that people who are in the Fearless Visionary group on Facebook, if they are listening to all these stories and they're feeling an impact, remembering things, something is, I don't want to use the word trigger, but I'll use it, trigger, right? Then we're not just leaving them out there with the triggers. We're saying website DMP, you can go in there for resources. You can go in there. We have some files that have resources out there. And what we're trying to do now is get more people to begin to create videos in there to talk about issues like addiction, sexual, things that happen to us, depression, things that can happen. You could go in there and seek help. So website DMP is Doctor of Nurse Practice, and web is an online thing because we know everybody's digital these days. And there are times that you don't really want to go out there and want people to know, particularly those who are from silent cultures. That place is like a safe haven where you can log in without anybody. It's a secret group that without anybody really bothering you, you can go in, get your resources, and check out of there. But our goal is to ultimately have live people go in there, be live events and live videos that people can actually go in and get experiences. Again, that is what makes Fearless Visionary different from every other movement. We're not necessarily a movement, but we are a lifestyle. We want this to be a lifestyle. Everywhere we go, we want to say, make Fearless Visionary. You are a Fearless Visionary. All of you all are, both men and women, you're all Fearless Visionaries when you take a stand for what is right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are okay, that's the birthday, so Rhonda, we need to do the book signing and acknowledgement.
And my question is, as you said, how do you encourage people from the silent community that would not want to come out, or if someone tried to come out, shame them? As you said, especially our Africans, how do you deal with that, or how do you go about it?
Well, let me tell you this. One of our ladies is Fatma, right? Fatma Mohammed. She's Algerian and she works in Saudi, all dressed in hijab or whatever. And with her, too, she has stories. And what she's doing for a while, she would not come on video for a long time. She was a secret agent in the back. She would not come out. But now she's found, I think with us, moving with us and understanding that she's going to be okay, right? She's found that courage to come out. And I think the first time she came out, she was so afraid, like, oh, people are not going to listen. They're not going to want to hear it. And boom, she came out and oh my God, we could not get her off. It was supposed to be 30 minutes, 2 hours. This sister was still going. And, so we understand because I come from a silent culture too. But here's the thing, silent or no silent, it's time to become audible so that our children, what we're doing right now, you see, we've already been affected. There's nothing we can do about it. But we can certainly do something about our future generation. And I'm not going to allow my own sons to perpetrate that. And so them seeing me now and knowing the stand that I take, that is proof enough for them to say, Mama is not going to take it from them. I'm not going to take it from their friends either. So when you stand, right, you understand that you're in your, there's a way that you could stand even in the Arab world. You also have to respect your society, right? You can't just go against this grain like that. But there are ways that you can do it, that you don't have to come out, boom, in their faces like that. But just like Fatma did it in stories, in storytelling. And so she's now has the freedom to say it without, she talks about the heels and the shoes and whatever, but she's actually talking about the atrocities committed against women in Arabic world. But she said it in such a beautiful way that they will have to think that, so wait a minute, heels and shoes, and then they realize, you know, this girl is probably hitting them with the heels. So.
Serena, we want to say, just want to add something to that.
How many students do we have here? Can you raise your hand?
Everybody, almost.
Any male students? Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, share with you guys that it's great that you're inviting us to up here to the university. There's a lot going on with students. And one of the things that we share is how to relate to each other. And I think that's the core of it. Kind of lifting the veil of how we relate as women, how we relate as men. I think the reason we have such a successful panel discussion with the men is the women want to know how men think. Because oftentimes we don't get it. You know? And we women want to know how you guys think. You know, because we think the way we think, we process information the way we process information. And, you know, we oftentimes look at you guys like, they just don't get it. They're just dumbing the door now, right? And I'm sure the guys look at us, they're like, these women are crazy, right? Like, we don't get these women. And so the purpose of coming together and having these discussions, we can sit down and kind of share how we process information and how we love and what we need individually. So we can come together and fulfill those things in a healthy manner, okay? So please, I want to encourage you to buy the book. I want to encourage you to join the community, get involved. Let's start dialogue. It is a lifestyle. And until we start having these discussions together, we can't heal. And people who are out there to perpetrate these disgusting acts upon men and women will continue to have their healing because we don't talk. That's right. I just want to say that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much. I can also thank you enough. I want to say thank you for your patience. Please put your hands together for yourself. Thank you for hanging out with us and listening and sharing and asking questions and also sharing your opinions. We have almost come to the end of this. So wait for you to get the book. And it's a great thing and it's such a privilege and honor to be part of this for some women. I spent time with them and I'm just like, wow, 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 wow. You know, so they are still here, available just a little bit, not for the whole night. Or do you guys want us to hang out with you, Cheryl? But they're here just in case you have more personal questions or you want to ask them a one-on-one, maybe what you don't want to ask, how do you want to share. They're still here for you. Yeah, at the table. So we're going to have the book signing over at the table outside. And I'm sure there's still something if you want to have, maybe there's some drinks for somebody, you can just hang around and talk to them, please. Yes, yes. Oh, I'll give you things. Yes.
Okay, so I also want to take the opportunity to thank Corvera Moulton. She's actually not here, but she's the director of she's the director of learning. Yeah, she's probably watching it, right? So she's the director of learning here at UEL. And can I tell you guys, if you don't know, you have one of the biggest, greatest mental health advocates here at this university. I have a long history with Corvera. We've been friends over 20 years, and I can tell you she has an incredible story. She's had an incredible story of being a caretaker to someone in her life, very special, that suffered with mental illness. And so she's an incredible supporter. She's an incredible advocate for mental health. And she's an advocate as well for the students. I know she loves students as well. So we want to take the time to thank you, Corvera, for inviting us here to the university, for allowing us to come and to share our stories here with the students. And we're so grateful for you and we're so thankful for you as well.
I spent a lot of time with her, so she kind of stuck with me. They're going back with her here. So, but you know what? You guys have great women in your lives. So thank you so much, Laura, for all your opportunities. And thank you so much, Erica, for that shout out. Thank you so much. we have finally come to the end of this. I hope you had a great time. There's a million questions. Honestly, since I got involved in the Fearless Visionaries and UEL, I just have questions in my head and things going in my head, and it runs through time, but I look at everything. I start from my childhood up to now, and I'm just like, wow, I still resonate with this, and this is going on daily. It's a never-ending mission, seriously. We have children, I have kids who are coming up, and they're gonna have children too. So I'm gonna be a grandmother sometime, so look at you, come on. And my mom is here as well. Please give it up for my mom. And it's such an honor to be part of this and to know that we've learned more than we're still learning. And I'm happy that it's not just a movement, it's actually a lifestyle, it's a mission. It's not over. So thank you so much. And thank you, students. Thank you for your time. I had an awesome time being with you, and I know you had an awesome time being with us. We have the book signing. It's going to be it's going to be outside here. So we're going to do that. 20 pounds for the birthday. I think it's worth having. So we look forward to you joining us outside the book signing with all our special guests. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Have a great weekend starting from tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we're going to be taking pictures as well. Please feel free to take pictures. Now we'll take pictures of all of you. Thank you so much.
I just didn't know. We have to be capsules, but no job. So we have a big red button that you can put an answer. I think when you see unwell, whatever you've done you need message
Everybody tells me that. Everyone tells me